Hey folks, this is Kelani. We're nearing the 2 weeks mark in Battle for Azeroth, and while a few crazy players might have blown through everything already, for most of us there's probably still plenty to keep us occupied, but it can be a little too easy to get sidetracked sometimes and to spend a lot of time in game seemingly getting very little done. I'm pretty terrible for this kind of thing myself. I see something shiny and forget why I logged on in the first place, but there's got to be another secret lying around here somewhere that requires you to click on every single NPC in BFA who's wearing a pirate hat, right? I'll get something from this seemingly meaningless adventure at some point. I can feel it. But when it comes to tangible content, there's a few things you should try to get done when you hit max level. I would say you should get them done, but we all have differing amounts of available time to commit to the World of Warcraft, and honestly, some of this stuff can soak up your time like a sponge. But I would try to work on as much of it as possible, because it's going to help you progress in the long run. So let's break it down and have a look at everything you should try to get done at level 120 in Battle for Azeroth. We'll start with the one-time stuff first, because it's always nice clearing something off your list which isn't going to reappear again the next day or even the next week. Pesky weekly lockouts, always keeping us coming back for more. The first thing you're going to want to clear off your checklist is the Battle for Azeroth storylines. I'm talking about the questing storylines which you might have left half finished because you suddenly hit 120, and several other perhaps shinier doors opened up to you at that point. But going back and knocking out all of the major quest lines to obtain your achievement for finishing the zones is going to be very important. There's one achievement per zone, like Just Do It or the Dark Heart of Nazmir, and there's also a meta achievement for each faction. After you have all 3 zone achievements, the Horde can continue on and complete their Bargain of Blood and Zandalar Forever achievements to unlock the Mythic only dungeon of King's Rest, while the Alliance can continue on to complete the Pride of Kul'Tiras achievement and unlock the Siege of Borealis Mythic-only dungeon. I believe the Nation United achievement comes after the dungeon for the Alliance side, so not only will the story clue you in on what's actually happening, but there's a Mythic dungeon locked behind completing the story quests for each faction. If you don't want to get left behind later on, you're going to need those dungeons. But the story doesn't stop there. There's also the war campaign to get through. If you need a carrot on a stick for this particular adventure, the opposite faction's Mythic-only dungeon is locked behind finishing your war campaign. So if you want to experience the Siege of Borealis on the Horde side, or if you want to plunder the tombs of King's Rest on the Alliance side, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and get that war campaign done. But if you've been putting off your war campaign altogether, you might be missing out on so many other pieces of content. The island expeditions are locked behind the war campaign, world quests are locked behind the war campaign, and the opposite faction's island is a core part of the war campaign. If you ignore it entirely, you've been a little daft in my opinion, so hop to, heave the sails and all that nonsense, the war campaign awaits. Oh, and if you get to a certain part that just kind of stops, that's because there's reputation requirements to continue. To finish this off, I think you need 7,500 rep through Revered with the Honor Bound on the Horde side, and the 7th Legion on the Alliance side, so that's also on our to-do list, but just know that you should tackle your war campaign at some point in the near future and go back when you hit the required reputation to finish it up. The story and war campaign are really the only 2 big portions of content you should get done, which are a one-time only thing, so we're moving into the daily and weekly checklist from here on out. You guys and gals know where this is going to start, world quests, but there are so many world quests on your maps every single day, and if you don't have time to knock them all out, it can feel like an endless battle. So let's prioritize world quests depending on how much time you have to allocate to them. The most important part of the world quest system is arguably the Emissary Quests. They provide large rewards for simply ticking 4 world quests off your map, and they come up each and every day, nice and convenient. They also reward you with a large chunk of rep, 1,500 for the Emissaries faction, which should help you on your way to a lot of different milestones with your reputations. You need that 7,500 into Honoured for the war campaign stuff, and the Champions of Azeroth faction has some very useful rewards as you rank up with them. That's actually the second most important part of world quests. If you have a little bit of extra time after doing your emissaries, you should focus on the Champions of Azeroth world quests to take advantage of the free item levels on your amulet and the unique rewards they have to offer. Sadly, there isn't really any other way to target farm the Champions of Azeroth rep, so the world quests are really important. The same kind of goes for the Honor Bound and the 7th Legion reps. The fastest way to get to that 7,500 mark is going to be riding over to the opposite faction's island and clearing the place of world quests. That is going to take significantly longer though, so that comes after the Champions of Azeroth World Quests. If you manage to get all of those World Quests done, or you just don't need the rep anymore because you have the war campaign completed, you can focus on whatever other factions you're interested in. Maybe you want the profession recipes from the Zandalari Empire, maybe you want the mount from some other factions. Focus on the reps you're wanting the rewards from, and heck, if you have all the time in the world, just clear out every world quest until you have what you're looking for. Some people will be aiming for Exalted for the 350 gear and mounts, but if you're not interested in either of those items, you can actually just stop at Revered, or at least stop actively working on farming rep at Revered. You don't gain much past that with most factions if you're not a collector, and the emissaries will get you to Exalted eventually as long as you're doing them every day. It's definitely nice to look at your map of world quests and feel like you don't have to clear them all, especially when their base rewards are kind of pants to begin with. 80 gold? Who cares about 80 gold? The Azerite world quests could be somewhat worthwhile, but island expeditions will probably end up being a more efficient method of farming AP if that's all you're interested in, and islands have a whole treasure trove of pets and mounts on their loot table too. Seems like world quests won't be worth a great deal after reputation is out of the window. Eventually we'll probably just clear our emissary quests and that's about it. It's not like we're hunting for legendaries like we were back in Legion. That's actually a pretty good point. Emissaries retained a lot of their value simply because they were another source of legendary gear. Without that extra carrot on a stick, I wonder how long the rewards from emissary quests will remain worthwhile. The rep really is the major driving power for world quests, and rep sort of has a hard limit. I guess if we get Paragon boxes again and they have some cool rewards, rep will continue to be the main driving force for emissaries, but I definitely wouldn't feel too bad for letting one or two expire at that point. We usually had a few other daily chores on our list in past expansions, but honestly not much else is really worth going out of your way for. The daily heroic queue doesn't offer anything special, and we don't really have any other daily activities in Battle for Azeroth, so let's move on to the weekly stuff. The most important weekly activity you should check off your list every week is the Island Expedition weekly quest. Obtain 40,000 Azerite through the Island Expeditions, which might sound like a lot but really doesn't take all too long. At this point you should probably ignore the normal queues and work on the heroic islands instead. I think there's a greater chance of rewards and it's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. You can rack up Azerite so quickly, which not only works towards that weekly quest to reward you with 2500 artifact power, but you will also get 225 for each heroic island you complete. When I'm playing with some guildies, we typically knock these out in 6 or 7 minutes, which is super quick and really time efficient, both for the weekly quest and just generally farming artifact power. The other major checklist within our checklist for the weekly stuff right now is Mythic Dungeons. There's 10 dungeons available if you've cleared out the story quests and the war campaign, and each one of them can drop 340 item level loot. If you're looking to get geared up, ready for the first raid tier or just for the first Mythic Plus season, Mythic Dungeons are going to be your best friend for the next week or so. You should try to get as many of them done as possible. My mage dinged 120 a few days ago. I haven't got through half of the Mythic Dungeons yet on this character, and I'm already 330 equipped. By the time I've got through all of the dungeon in this week's lockout, with a little bit of luck I should be above that 340 mark and getting pretty close to 350. That's raid ready right there. You might not be able to do every single dungeon every week, but you should look at where the major gaps in your gear currently are. If your braces are still a miserable 300 item level, focus on the dungeons which can drop braces. If you're desperately in need of a weapon, make that your target if you can only get 1 or 2 dungeons done per week. Use your time wisely and keep your fingers crossed. If you're looking for gear upgrades, put as much time into running dungeons as you can right now. As the weeks roll by and the next wave of content hits our shores, our weekly checklist is going to expand to include running a high-level Mythic Plus key every single week, getting as many raid bosses killed as you have time for, and delving into the warfronts again at least once a week. There's some shiny loot to be had in our future, so I would recommend trying to get some of the easier stuff done right now so you're not left behind in the weeks to come. It might end up being a little hard justifying spending your time in Mythic 0 dungeons when you can try your hand in the more rewarding Mythic Plus dungeons. You might find yourself with very little time to go back and finish up the war campaign or even the story quests when you have a raid to attend, and everything might just shift in priority to push every single world quest out of your sight. Getting it done now means you'll have more time for the new content next week, but that's the checklist I'll be following for the next few weeks and how I'll be spending a good chunk of my time in Azeroth. Azeroth. What about you? What are you currently prioritizing with your game time? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.